Well, that's all with sport for now. Just head to our website for more details on the potential effect of the weather in northern Italy on the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at Imola, due to be on Sunday. Formula One employees have been told not to attend the track today because of all the conditions. So head to bbc.com/sport for that. But that's all the time we have. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye for now.
Live from London, this is BBC News. A new climate update is issued warning that the world is likely to break the 1.5 degree temperature threshold in at least one of the next 5 years. Heavy rain and severe flooding kills at least 5 people and leaves 50,000 without power in northern Italy. More momentum behind the push to see fighter jets sent to Kyiv as Germany pledges to strengthen Ukraine's air defence capabilities. Hello, I'm Sarah Campbell. Thank you for joining me. We do have a busy programme for you today. We'll be telling you the latest on those climate figures. We'll also be taking you live to Berlin, where the defence ministers from the UK and Germany have been meeting. And we have the most amazing digital reconstruction pictures, bringing the Titanic to life as never before. But first, we start with breaking news on climate. New figures just released show that global temperatures are likely to surge to record levels in the next 5 years. The World Meteorological Organization says there is a 66% chance that we will break the 1.5 degree temperature threshold for at least a year. Now, there is a 98% chance of the warmest year on record before 2027. Arctic heating will likely be 3 times higher than the global average. And the reason for these worrying predictions? Well, temperatures being driven up by ongoing carbon emissions, plus the likely onset of a naturally occurring El Niño event, which can trigger more extreme weather and climate events, including severe rainfall and drought, depending on the region. There's a lot to take in, isn't it? Let's go live now to Laurie Goering. She's the climate change editor at the Thompson Reuters Foundation. Thank you so much for joining me today. Can you just take us through those figures? I said there's a lot to take in. Just really, how significant is this today? Okay, James, really interesting. Thanks for bringing us that from Kyiv. James Landau there, our diplomatic correspondent. Now, around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. You are live with BBC News. Thank you for joining us. Over to Sudan now. This is where ongoing fighting between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces has caused widespread displacement of over 700,000 people. Now the United Nations Humanitarian Response Plan is seeking $2.56 billion to help people affected by the crisis. The refugee agency is also seeking more funding to assist those who are forced to flee the country. Our correspondent Imogen Fuchs was monitoring the UN's news conference on Sudan in Switzerland, from where she sent us this analysis. He thought the animal was a turtle, would you believe, before realising it was something much more sinister. Shall we just have a little look at that just one final time? If you're in a kayak, you really don't want to see that coming towards you. Thought it was a turtle, but of course it was a shark. Now, do stay with us here on BBC News. There's plenty more to come. This is BBC News. These are your headlines. The world is likely to break the 1.5 degree temperature threshold in at least one of the next 5 years. That's according to a new climate report. Little progress has been made in emergency talks to avoid a US debt default as President Biden announces he'll cut short an upcoming trip to Asia to focus on the crisis. And the first full-sized 3D scan of the Titanic shows the wreck as it's never been seen before, revealing secrets hidden on the ocean floor for more than a century. And we will be bringing you a full report on those Titanic pictures, which are amazing. So do stay with us for those. But I just want to bring you a little bit of breaking news before. We've been telling you about these very heavy floods happening in the north of Italy. And we've just had a statement through that the Emilia-Romagna Formula 1 Grand Prix at Imola will not be held this weekend due to the extreme weather. This is what the organisers have said today, issued a statement saying the decision has been taken because it's not possible to safely hold the event for our fans, the teams and our personnel, and it is the right and responsible thing to do given the situation faced by towns and cities in the region. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Welcome back. You're live with BBC News. Now, there's a major gathering of European leaders taking place in Iceland, and Ukraine has been one of the major discussion topics. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, the French President Emmanuel Macron, and the British Prime Minister are among the leaders emphasising their support. And Rishi Sunak and the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte have promised to build an international coalition to provide fighter jet support for Ukraine. Well, live now to London, where I'm joined by James Rands, who's an analyst at the Defence Intelligence Agency, James, and a former Army officer. Thank you so much for joining us. I suppose the first question is how significant this new announcement is, particularly by Prime Minister Sunak and his Dutch counterpart. What a story. And we'll have much more on Titanic later in the programme, so do stay with us. Live from London, this is BBC News. A new climate update is issued, warning that the world is likely to break the 1.5 degree temperature threshold in at least one of the next 5 years. Severe flooding kills at least 5 people in northern Italy and forces the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix to be cancelled. More momentum behind the push to see fighter jets sent to Kyiv as Germany pledges to strengthen Ukraine's air defence capabilities. Hello, I'm Sarah Campbell. You join us. Thank you for joining us here on BBC News. And I just want to take you straight away to Berlin, if I can. You'll remember we were waiting for the news conference. This is between the German Defence Minister Boris Pistorius and the UK Defence Minister Ben Wallace. We will be joining them to hear what they're saying. Of course, we know that they've been meeting this morning. We know that Ukraine will be very high up their agenda, talking about how else to assist Ukraine. There have been lots of statements released over the last few days. President Zelensky, you'll remember, has been going around. He's been meeting European leaders and also talking about preparations for the upcoming NATO summit in Vilnius. Let's have a listen across and see whether we can pick anything up.
In the budget is a common target.
That's the UK Defence Minister Ben Wallace there, saying that he's sending out a very clear message to Russia that what they are doing is wrong. We'll keep across that news conference for you. But for the moment, around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. You're live with BBC News. Over to Sudan, where ongoing fighting between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces has caused widespread displacement of over 700,000 people. Now the United Nations Humanitarian Response Plan is seeking $2.56 billion to help people affected by the crisis. The refugee agency is also seeking more funding to assist those who were forced to flee the country. Olga Serrado, spokesperson for the UN's refugee agency, brought the BBC up to date with the situation. Now, in the next half hour, we're going to be bringing you those fantastic pictures of the digital reconstruction of the Titanic. They really are worth watching. So stay with us here on BBC News. This is BBC News. These are the headlines. The world is likely to break the 1.5 degree temperature threshold in at least one of the next 5 years. That's according to a new climate report. Police in New Zealand are treating a fire at a Wellington hospital that killed 6 people as arson and have begun a murder investigation. And the first full-sized 3D scan of the Titanic shows the wreck as it's never been seen before, revealing secrets hidden on the ocean floor for more than a century. So police in New Zealand say they are now treating a deadly fire at a hostel in Wellington as arson. 6 people died in the fire at the Loafers Lodge building in Wellington in the early hours of Tuesday morning. A homicide investigation is now underway. Here's the police officer overseeing that inquiry. Tom Baton, they're reporting from the Gaza Strip, around the world and across the UK. This is BBC News. You're live with BBC News. One of the world's biggest car makers, Stellantis, has called on the government to renegotiate part of the Brexit deal or risk losing parts of its car industry. Stellantis says it can no longer meet Brexit trade rules on where parts are sourced. It is the first time a car firm has openly called on the government to renegotiate the terms of the deal. Well, Courtney Bainbridge is in the newsroom for us with all the details. Courtney. Oh, brilliant, Rebecca. Thank you so much for that exclusive report. Absolutely fascinating. And do stay with us here on BBC News. Live from London, this is BBC News. A new climate update is issued, warning that the world is likely to break the 1.5 degree temperature threshold in at least one of the next 5 years. Catastrophic floods in northern Italy kill at least 8 people and force the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix to be cancelled. The United Nations says it needs almost $3 billion to help those affected by the crisis in Sudan. Hello, I'm Sarah Campbell, and we start with new figures which suggest global temperatures are likely to surge to record levels in the next 5 years. The World Meteorological Organization says there is a 66% chance that we will break the 1.5 degree temperature threshold for at least a year. There is a 98% chance of the warmest year on record before 2027. Arctic heating will likely be 3 times higher than the global average. And the reason for these worrying predictions are temperatures being driven up by ongoing carbon emissions, plus the likely onset of a naturally occurring El Niño event, which can trigger more extreme weather and climate events, including severe rainfall and drought, depending on the region. Laurie Goering is the climate change editor at the Thompson Reuters Foundation, and I asked her to explain the significance of these figures. Thank you for staying with us here on BBC News. I just wanted to bring you a little bit of breaking news that we've got. Very little detail at the moment, but there has been a tweet. The ex-Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, says police have surrounded his house and his arrest is imminent. We've got no more details other than that at the moment, but you will remember he was arrested and released last week, but at the time they were saying that he would be rearrested, or that was certainly the concern of the Pakistani ex-Prime Minister, and it appears that that situation has developed. So once again, a tweet, the Pakistan ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan says police have surrounded his house, his arrest is imminent. Across the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. You are watching BBC News. Over to Sudan, where ongoing fighting between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces has caused widespread displacement of over 700,000 people. Now, the United Nations Humanitarian Response Plan is seeking $2.56 billion to help people affected by the crisis. The refugee agency is also seeking more funding to assist those who are forced to flee the country. Sarah Kreta, a filmmaker covering migration issues who's on the Ethiopia-Sudan border, has been telling the BBC about her experience. Just a reminder of that story that's been developing in Pakistan as we've been on air. The former Prime Minister Imran Khan tweeted that police had surrounded his house and his arrest was imminent. As you can see there, he is doing a live broadcast on YouTube at the moment. We'll keep you up to date on that developing situation. Do stay with us here on BBC News.
Now on BBC News, the latest business news from across the globe. World Business Report.
Watch this space. The UK government looks for agreement with the EU as one of the world's biggest car makers calls for a review on the Brexit trade deal. And are you aware of the risks? We take a look at the world of cryptocurrency trading after calls that the industry should be treated as a form of gambling. Hello to you, welcome along. This is World Business Report. I'm Ben Thompson, and we will start this hour here in the UK, where one of the world's largest car makers has called on the British government to renegotiate part of the Brexit trade deal, warning that without it there could be significant job losses in its UK operations. Stellantis, which makes Vauxhall, Peugeot, Citroën and Fiat cars, had committed to making electric vehicles in the UK. But it now says it will struggle to meet Brexit trade rules without incurring EU import taxes when sourcing parts for those cars. So what exactly is at risk? Well, Andy Palmer is the former Chief Operating Officer for Nissan. He told me that the UK could suffer if they don't act now. Yeah, it really does underline how important all of these things are when they're interconnected like that, doesn't it? David Bailey, Professor David Bailey, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Let's head to Japan now. Some good news for the economy there. It's grown faster than expected in the first 3 months of the year. Why? Well, inbound travel and a rebound in post-COVID spending helped to offset the global economic slowdown. But consumers are facing prices that are still rising at their fastest rate in more than 40 years, as the BBC's Monica Miller now reports. So Japan economic fortunes looking slightly brighter, but in the US there are still concerns over the so-called debt ceiling. Hopes, though, are being floated for a way out of that deadlock. Top lawmakers on both sides of the political divide now saying it is possible that a deal can be made. So what can we read into that? Let's speak to Samira Hussain, who's in New York for us. And Samira, we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now, haven't we? That looming deadline for when the money runs out in the US Treasury, but some signs of a potential breakthrough today. Yes, one to watch though, isn't it? Samira, thank you for now. Samira Hussain there live in New York. Now here in the UK, a number of MPs have urged the government to treat the buying and selling of cryptocurrencies as a form of gambling. The likes of Bitcoin and Ethereum trading can be pretty volatile, and MPs fear that the public may not be aware of what are often extreme risks. But the Treasury has told the BBC that it doesn't support the use of gambling regulation for the crypto world. Let's talk now to David Gerard, who's author of Attack of the 50-Foot Blockchain. David, good to have you with us. So in your view, should there be tighter regulation of crypto? David, really good to get your thoughts. It's a fascinating area. We will talk again about this, I'm sure. David Gerard there, author of Attack of the 50-Foot Blockchain. That's how the business world looks this hour. If you want more from us on the website, bbc.com/business. See you very soon. Bye-bye.
You are live with BBC News. Just want to take you back to that developing story from Pakistan that we were telling you about earlier on this afternoon, involving the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan. He was tweeting from inside his house. Just to let you know, he's also, as you can see there, he's doing a live broadcast on social media, and he's been tweeting as well. He said, "Probably my last tweet before my next arrest. The police have surrounded my house." As I say, he's now on his YouTube channel. Local Pakistani television are showing his speech. We here at the BBC have been hearing reports of police reaching outside his house in Lahore and blocking the road leading towards his house. Officials in Punjab haven't confirmed to the BBC. This is coming from our producer Usman Zahid, who's based in Newsgather. He's based in Pakistan, saying that officials in Punjab haven't confirmed if they have any plan to arrest the former Prime Minister today. We are waiting for updates for that. But once again, that's the former Prime Minister, Imran Khan. He's been tweeting that this is probably my last tweet before my next arrest. The police have surrounded my house. We will keep you updated on any developments on that story. We'll keep watching that for you, keep monitoring it. But let's move to one of our other stories that we've been covering this afternoon, and these are to do with emergency talks in Washington on raising the US debt ceiling have broken up without an agreement. Both the White House and senior Republicans have expressed cautious optimism that a deal could be reached by the end of the week. Without a deal, the US could end up defaulting or not paying the latest instalments on its $31.4 trillion debt. The deadline for that is June the 1st. Well, for more on this story, I'm joined by the Times economics editor, Miriam Khan. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you just explain, I think for most normal people, the sums involved here sound astronomical. Okay, thank you for your analysis there. That's Miriam Khan, the Times economics editor. Now, it's probably the most famous shipwreck of all time, the focus of countless documentaries and Hollywood movies, one in particular. But there's a version of the Titanic you haven't seen. Experts have used special technology to map the whole ship and create its digital twin. And our science editor, Rebecca Morell, has been given exclusive access to the project. Absolutely Fabulous pictures there, just the enduring fascination to do with the Titanic and all things Titanic. Can I take you to some pictures from today? This was a little earlier today. You'll see there, you may recognise them, they were in the news last week. This is King Charles III and Queen Camilla, and they have visited London's Covent Garden. Now, this is their first joint public engagement since the coronation back on the 6th of May. So they paid a visit to St Paul's Church. This is in central London. That's its 390th anniversary. They were greeted by crowds of people, including school children waving Union flags. The new Queen was gifted a bouquet of flowers by one of the young fans. There you can see King Charles having a little joke, and there we go. The selfie sticks out there, the selfie cameras. King Charles and Queen Camilla back in the public eye after their coronation. There's plenty more to come on BBC News. Do stay with us.